Okay guys, don't mind the mess of the workstation, but people have been bugging me to make new videos recently, so I'm taking an opportunity to actually do that. If you look right here, Citadel paints have come out with new shades and new contrast paints. Contrast paints actually go over a primer. The primer, the new spray, is this white scar paint. It used to be the Corax white, which is now outdated and no longer in use. The white scar is a primer. The primer is actually pretty solid. I mean, all in all, it covers really well. So I like it. It works really well for the coverage. Doesn't need a lot of multiple sprays. This is 2 sprays over top of the Hulk. I just did a quick one to kind of just show you. I haven't tested any of this stuff yet, so we're doing this live, and we're gonna try to see how this thing works. I'll demonstrate what the shades are on a different video, but the shades are kind of like washes, and the washes, we can go over a wash technique, but the contrast paints are interesting. They're made for the miniatures, for the Warhammer miniatures, and the reason that they do them is you're actually supposed to be able to speed paint with them. I'm shaking this green up. You're supposed to be able to speed paint with them and then doing it like an entire army on a quick time frame. Not exactly what we do with custom action figures. So we're gonna test it and see how this works. This primer and paint are made to go together. So I picked this brighter green because I didn't really like the skin tone of this Hulk figure, even though I do like the sculpt of I guess it's the same body as the 80th Hulk and the 20th anniversary Hulk. So if you see, I'm using a wash brush because technically this is kind of like a wash. It's very thin and runny. You can kind of see the consistency here if you're able to look at the video and bring it up good resolution. I shook it up really well, so there's liquid and good pigmentation in it. And we're gonna just try to apply it and see how it actually works over top of this primer and see if it works well or not. I could completely be ruining this figure right now. I have no idea how this is gonna work out. We're just kind of going over the technique over top of it. And it lays really well. And what we're looking at is, you can kind of see how it's already doing it. It's pulling underneath of the pec muscle on the sculpt, and it's starting to pull into the crevices, which is exactly what I want it to do. And again, I picked this brighter one. I wanted to make more of a gamma irradiated Hulk, and it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. So it's basically like it covers you on highlights, lowlights, and everything, all with should be one coat versus multiple coats. Obviously this isn't supposed to, it's, for me, it's not going to replace with 100% certainty of it's not going to replace all the other techniques like the washes and dry brushing and things like that, but this is pretty cool for a layer where the detailing is clearly there. And it's leaving you multiple shades without having to use different paints. So I mean, it's actually pretty decent. There's a lot of yellow in there. You can see the yellow, and then you can see the darker areas in the recesses of the sculpt. You can see it in the chest here, and then into the upper part of the rib cage and abdominals. You can absolutely see it right here on the obliques. Let's see how it looks on the abs. And we just got a little bit on the pants, but it's okay because we're going to be painting over the pants anyway with purple, so it's not like it's the end of the world there. So again, doesn't replace my normal stuff, but it can be a cool variation, something different than what you're used to doing, something to switch it up, provide a little bit of variety to your figures with a new paint and some new technique. And we might have went a little heavy with the amount on here, so we're gonna spread it throughout the rest of the sculpt. And you can always add more. It's hard to decrease it though, so I'm gonna take some of the excess off with the paintbrush. You can do this with a paper towel or a small sponge or something too, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna use the brush to move it around. It's leaving the highlights that I wanted to see. You can see what it's doing to the abs. Try to do some of the head. See if I can zoom in on the head so you guys can see that a little bit better. There we go. That looks pretty good. Let's see how it works. And again, not gonna replace it. I'm still gonna have to do the teeth. I'm still gonna have to do the eyes. So it doesn't replace that stuff. I can't say that enough. I don't think this is the be-all, end-all of paint where you're gonna slather some contrast paint onto your figure and then you're done. It doesn't work that way. It's not gonna stop you from having to do layers and washes and dry brushing and shades and tints and inks. Stuff I'm gonna try to start covering in more videos. You can see that it's doing. You can see that it's pulling, and it's doing what it's supposed to. It's giving you highlights, lowlights in the skin tone right from the jump. And I'm gonna have to switch, obviously, to a smaller brush to get detail work done on here. You know what? This, I think we're just gonna go. I'm gonna touch up the teeth and the eyes later, so I don't mind going over it completely. If I get some in the teeth, I get some in the teeth. It is what it is. Same thing with the eyes. Just do it. I like this stuff. You can see what it's doing and how it's working as it dries. And again, for me, I don't know that I'll replace it and have it be like salt paint anymore. It's definitely cool doing some different stuff, and I'm probably going to use this more for accessories and small things, maybe some heads here and there. But I doubt I'm going to do a figure that's this large again. And it's just because I'm not used to this technique yet, and I'm kind of a purist when it comes to painting. I don't like changing stuff, doing different things. The way that I learned and taught myself how to paint over the years. So, but it definitely is cool, and it's really good, I guess, for a beginner. So if you're just starting out doing custom figures, don't shy away from this. This contrast paint, Citadel Contrast. And if you're buying it, I recommend buying it at an actual Warhammer store instead of buying it online, because you can at least have someone there in sales that can direct you to which ones are the new contrast versus the ones that are leftover stock of discontinued contrast colors. So you're buying the right ones that have the new formula that are how these things are supposed to be. So now what I would do, I would probably leave, you can see brush strokes and stuff a little bit throughout this thing. What I would probably wind up doing is, this would be my base coat, where I already have highlights and lowlights in there. What I'm going to do is probably pick a different color, and then of a green, and then I'm going to start doing regular conventional paint highlights and touch up. So So what I would be doing is I would be adding a green on the abs, and on the pack, under the face, adding different shading techniques into it that aren't coming up just from using the contrast alone. And I didn't think it ever would, but I wanted to test this out, and I wanted you guys to see how this works on custom figures. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about how to use this for Warhammer miniatures, but there's not a damn video online yet about how to do this for custom action figures, and that's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. And here's the thing, there's nothing, once this dries, there's nothing saying I can't continue to go over this with additional. I actually like how it looks thicker here. So I actually might do this to get rid of some of these tones. Yeah, like I said, the goal was gamma irradiated version of the Hulk, and to do that, I'm probably going to get some neon, regular neon green paint, either another Citadel paint that's just normal formula, or I have neon Tamiya paint, and I would do some of the line work in this, some of the veins. Some of the veins should be like bright neon. It would look cool. Make sure when you paint, it's kind of like sanding. You don't want to paint against the grain, you want to paint with the grain. So you want to paint with the sculpt, not against the sculpt. And that becomes intuitive over time and practice. That. Again, this was primed pre-video and sanded and washed prior to that, so that I didn't have to waste any time doing all that stuff to show you guys. But that's absolutely key and essential to making a custom action figure. If you don't do those prep steps, it's going to look awful. It's going to get laughs on the internet, and you're going to get ridiculed. And your joints are going to tear apart any of the paint layers. That's what we call joint rub. Definitely don't want that. That is the common rookie mistake in action figures. Is joint rub. People that just don't know how to do that, or are too lazy to do it, or they're using shitty paint. When you look at my channel, you'll see paints to use, paints not to use for making custom figures. And you can see that the majority of the ones that we're talking about that cause joint rub are the ones in that video that I tell you not to use. And I don't care what anyone says on the internet about how good they are and how fine they are, and craft paints are great, and you just got to know what you're doing. They don't work. Not on plastic. Great for your grandma's birdhouse that she's building. They're not good for a plastic collectible miniature statue that you want on your shelf. So again, not perfect, right? But cool base, cool shading. I may go lighter next time. Just see how this stuff pulls. I like how the arms look a little bit more than I like how the chest looks. I like how the head looks. The head looks like the best so far. I went pretty light with the head. Probably went too heavy with the body. I probably went up re-priming the body. Maybe sand it off a little bit and re-prime it to get it to look better. And redo it. This was a test. So again, everything's trial and error when you're making stuff and using new products and new techniques for the first time. So this, for the test, kind of tells me what I can do with this new paint line. And again, is it going to be my go-to? No. Am I going to invest in buying some of them? Yes. And honestly, I'm going to kind of experiment and try to figure out where does it work, and where doesn't it work, and where doesn't it work? What's the best application for this stuff? When does it work? When doesn't it? Right now, I'm finding out that on a larger figure, it may not be the best. Maybe I wanted to paint this the conventional way. But I may be wrong when this is all dry. So when I finish this thing, I'll post videos of how this thing looks in the end. If you're not following, follow just the YouTube channel. You can find finished product figures on Instagram at Komodo Customs, Facebook, and even Twitter. So try to cover most of the social media sources. I haven't branched out to Twitch yet, even though people keep bugging me to. I think I'm probably going to stay with YouTube for a little while, now that people are asking me to make tutorial videos, and we're honestly making our first real good tutorial video now of a sample of this new paint. So I'm gonna see what it looks like if how much can this stuff work. Look at that. So it can, if you go on too much and make a mistake, it cleans off pretty well. Takes it right back down to the primer. And that's cool because we made a mistake and we put too much on. And now, the cool thing about that wipe worked really well. The wipe technique is basically when you have wet paint and you can just kind of wash away a bunch of it with a with a paper towel or a sponge or something like that, and then you leave the highlight, but you leave all the recessed area. And we just did that, and I haven't seen this done with this type of paint yet, so that was pretty cool. I mean, we just got a lot of highlights on the 3D portion of it. So look at it, think about it, how sculpt works and 3D looks in real life. A painting, you have to add the shading in the areas, but on a 3D model, I'm sorry, you have to pretty much provide some of those highlights and lowlights to go into the sculpt. As you can see, in the muscles, we have that 3D sculpt in there. In the teeth, on the recesses, we have it. It's there. That said, we want the lowlights and the highlights, just like hair. Hair's another thing that's interesting to paint because of that. So we're just going to go on. First, put this on lighter this time. instead I'm going to use more paint, conventional paint, and I'm going to probably put a dry brush over top of all of this. So I'm going to be doing a dry brushing in like a light green, maybe an olive, over top of all of this area. Pec major, pec minor, rib cage, abdominals. Also works a little bit better. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have questions, feel free to write them down below. But I kind of wanted to review the paint. I kind of wanted to show you how to use it, even though I've never used it before. I figured I would wing it after watching a couple of those videos. And that looks a whole lot better than what we were just looking at. I had too much paint in those areas. But the cool thing is, I showed you guys how to correct and compensate for an error. And if you look at the arm is perfect. The chest needs a little bit more work, but you can still see like some streakiness. We're playing with it. We're trying to get the paint to pull the right areas. That arm is great. And then these veins, I would do like a bright neon green in there. And then just, again, continue to use and play with the contrast to get it to work the way you want. The way that looks natural. I don't really know what this stuff looks like dry. So I don't know, like, it looks like this is pretty dry, so it looks like it dries very matte, which is great. You don't want shine on your action figures. If you get shine on your action figures, it looks like those cheaper ones are like a kid's toy versus an actual collectible. You don't want shine on it, so it doesn't even really look like, unless you're I mean, I don't know how the sealer is going to work with this. It doesn't look like you need to use dull coat with this. It's already dull, which is awesome. Just be mindful where you're putting your paint when you're doing it. It looks like when you layer this, if I go over a spot that I've already painted, it looks like it's just darker in that area than like most paint is. So be cognizant if you're not painting the entire thing in one setting. You're going to wind up with streaks or lines. It'll kind of look like your lawn. We're done mowing with different streaks. But it's cool. I mean, it's definitely a cool paint. It's definitely a cool line of paints. I'm glad they refined these things and they're making it better. I think this was the intention all along, and the first wave of the contrast paints really didn't work well. These are better. I feel like I wasted my money buying the first wave of contrast stuff, hoping it would be doing what it's doing here. It never really lived up to expectations, and that's unfortunate. But it looks like Citadel got it right on the second try, and it's working out pretty well. Bristle. There we go, got it off. That's the way to do. You want to look unprofessional. Use a bristle and have it stuck on your sculpt. And then that's fine. Has that forever entombed in the sculpt of the figure you were supposed to be making for them. Make
actually look done. So, I mean, again, cool Gamma Hulk. That was the purpose here. Let's make Gamma Hulk bright, angry, giving off radiation. Pick this color purposely. There's like three different new green colors, 4 different new green colors, something like that. And you know, if I ever do this again, I ever do a Hulk like this again, I may pick a different one. I might pick the olive one or the darker one or whatever, just to do something a little bit more realistic. There we go. Bright cartoon poppy. Because I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to think. See if this paint's worthwhile for you. And I wanted something to pop on the screen since I knew I was making a video. So again, there's a ton of these. There's a whole line. Just because I'm using a bright green, don't assume that all the colors are this bright. I mean, you have black and grays, and that's great for shadows and shading. There's also red, and orange, and yellow. Apparently the yellow is really, really good, which anyone who has ever painted an action figure knows that yellow sucks. And is the worst paint probably to deal with because of the way the yellow pigmentation rolls. It doesn't look good. You need multiple thin layers. That's the other thing. This stuff is real thin. You can take it right out of the bottle. You don't have to water it down. You don't have to thin it out with any paint thinners. I'm just taking it right straight from the paint pot jar, applying it directly to the figure. So that is definitely a plus because it saves you the time if you're doing a quick figure. You don't have to do anything. You're just going. And again, it's wet, but once that's dry, I'm sure that'll look really cool. And I'm probably gonna do, just to make it look different and not the same, I'm probably gonna do the pants in regular purple with a black wash to it, and then some rips with some white dry brushing to make it look like some wear to the pants. If I keep it purple and I keep it regular where it's not this color, it's gonna make the Hulk pop. And when I say pop, he's gonna look gamma irradiated bright neon green with regular dark purpley pants and black hair with some green highlighting in it. That'll make the Hulk pop a whole lot more than if I were to do the contrast paint on the sorry, I'm distracting myself with actual painting. It will make the figure pop a whole lot more versus if I were to do contrast on the pants also. Because if I were to do contrast on the pants also, it's going to look very similar to this versus looking bland. I want your eye, as an artist, I want your eye to be drawn to certain things. And in this case, I want your eye to be drawn to the paint job on the Hulk's skin. I don't want you to really be looking at his pants. So we did this. We're coming up on 30 minutes of this video from the time I started it. And I'm gonna move my camera. You can see this is 30 minutes, this is quick. I mean, look at the face, the details in the face. Now, yes, we have to get back in there and we have to do the eyes and the teeth.
absolutely have to do the hair. But we've done all of our highlights, lowlights, everything on here. The painting's done. Yeah, we're gonna have to turn the joints a little bit and, you know, get inside some of the cracks and crevices here. The painting is done. That's a glare. That's not white on that foot. That's just glare. If I turn them, you're gonna say you're gonna lose it. But we're done. We painted an entire base coat in a 30-minute span. Again, like I said, you're gonna have to move and get into certain spots. And the second I move this arm joint, it, you know, the butterfly joint's gonna open up, and I'm gonna have to get in there too. But it's done. I mean, it's done. We need a little bit more there. No big deal. So yeah, you're gonna do touch-ups and stuff, obviously. In the neck area, obviously, it needs more paint, some on the chin. But for the most part, we finished an entire base coat figure and done a wash at the same time in a 30-minute time span. And that's nothing at all for custom figures. They're time consuming to make, and your customers will want you to crank these things out quick. So if you're in a time crunch, don't shy away from using the new contrast paints by Citadel. For action figures too, not just the Warhammer miniatures, because they do work. I'm trying to touch up this shoulder thing because I touched it. And I don't want it to be ruined. I touched it while it was still wet. Let's put that in. A little bit more there. And again, you can continue to add more as you go, and it will just pull into the spots you want it to, and create a little bit darker area to what you already have. And that is not a problem. It's actually a good thing. So you have these things are nice. I was on the fence as I was painting it with you guys and trying to stay positive. I'm pretty much sold on it now. Because the control for these things are nice. And I don't have to do a ton. Paint bristle, right front and center. Yep, I think I'll probably be adding like an olive or darker tone dry brush. And we'll go from there. If you have questions, comments, please leave them below. You can look up where to buy Warhammer paints just by looking up warhammer.com and going on there and looking where your closest Warhammer store is. But thanks for looking. I appreciate you guys staying with me for the 35 minutes of a tutorial on how to use Citadel contrast paints.